My beloved child, come close to me tonight. Set down whatever you are carrying, just for these few minutes, and let me speak to you the way I have wanted to speak to you for so long. I want you to remember every night you prayed alone. The nights you knelt beside your bed with no one watching. The mornings you whispered your fears into a quiet room, certain that no one heard you. The car rides where you cried without sound, because you did not want anyone to ask what was wrong. I was there. I have always been there. You prayed alone, but you were never actually alone, and you did not say a single word that I did not hear. There is something I have wanted to tell you for a long time, and tonight, I finally have your full attention, so I will say it plainly. You have spent so much of your life believing that your private moments with me were smaller, quieter, less significant than the public moments other people share about their faith. You have compared your quiet, hidden prayers to the confident, visible faith you see in others, and quietly concluded that yours must be lacking something. But beloved, the prayers no one else witnessed were never lesser. In many ways, they were the most honest prayers you have ever prayed, because there was no audience to perform for, only me to speak to. I want you to understand something today, deep in your bones, not just in your mind. It was never silence. It was always an answer being prepared. It was never that I was distant. It was always that I was working in places you could not yet see. You looked at the empty room around you and believed that emptiness meant absence. But I was not absent, I was near, closer than your own breath, closer than the ache in your chest when you prayed the hardest prayers you have ever prayed. The room was empty, but I was there. Think back to those nights, the ones you have almost forgotten, and the ones you remember far too clearly. You sat in the dark, and you spoke to me with a shaking voice, or maybe no voice at all, just tears, and a heart too heavy to form words. You thought that because no one else was in the room, your prayer would simply dissolve into the silence, unheard, unanswered, unnoticed. But hear me now, beloved, I was in that room with you. I was not far off, watching from a distance. I was near enough to feel every tremor in your voice, near enough to catch every tear before it hit the floor. It was never an empty room. It was always a meeting place between you and me, even when you could not feel it. It was never wasted breath. It was always a prayer rising, being recorded, being remembered. You thought you were alone with your fear, but you were alone with me, and I do not turn away from fear. I meet it, I sit with it, I stay until it softens. Not because you prayed correctly. Not because you found the right words, or knelt in the right posture, or believed with a perfect, unshaken faith. Not because of your performance, but because of my presence, which was never dependent on your performance in the first place. I did not wait for you to pray well before I started listening. I was already listening before you opened your mouth. You have carried a quiet belief, maybe without even realizing it, that you had to pray a certain way to be heard. That your prayers needed to be polished, articulate, confident. But I have never required that from you. I have never measured your prayers the way the world measures a speech, or a performance, or an achievement. I hear the groan as clearly as the eloquent word. I hear the silence as clearly as the shout. I heard you when you had nothing left to say but my name, whispered through clenched teeth in the middle of your pain. I remember the nights you tried to pray and could not find any words at all. You opened your mouth and nothing came out except a long, tired breath, or a sound that was somewhere between a sigh and a sob. You worried, in that moment, that your silence meant your prayer had failed before it even began. But beloved, I have never needed your words to understand your heart. I was reading what was underneath the silence long before you found a single sentence to describe it. A prayer without words is still a prayer. A cry without shape is still heard exactly as it is. There were also the prayers you prayed in anger, the ones you almost felt guilty for afterward. You demanded answers. You asked why, more than once, more than 100 times. You wondered aloud whether I was even listening at all, whether any of it mattered, whether you were shouting into nothing. I want you to know, I did not turn away from your anger. I did not recoil from your questions. I welcomed every bit of it, because it was honest, and honesty has always mattered more to me than composure. Every tear was recorded, every whisper was known. My child, I want you to picture something with me. I want you to imagine that every tear you have ever cried in private has been gathered, kept, honored, never wasted, never forgotten. Because that is exactly what has happened. Nothing about your pain has gone unnoticed by me. Nothing about your private struggle has been dismissed as unimportant. You may have felt invisible in your suffering, but you were never invisible to me. It was never that your pain did not matter. It was always that your pain mattered enough for me to stay close through. All of it. It was never that you were too much, too emotional, too broken, too needy. It was always that you were exactly the kind of honest, aching heart that I draw closest to. Not because you hid your pain well, but because you brought it to me at all, even in fragments, even in silence, even in anger. You do not have to explain yourself to me. You do not have to justify why you were struggling, or apologize for how long it took you to feel steady again. I was not counting the days, judging the delay, growing impatient with your process. I was walking every single day with you, patient in a way that no other presence in your life has ever been patient, because my patience does not run out the way human patience does. Every whisper you thought disappeared into nothing, I caught. Every question you asked me in confusion, even the angry ones, even the ones laced with doubt, I received without flinching. It was never that your doubt disqualified you from my love. It was always that your honesty drew you nearer to it. I am not intimidated by your questions. I am not offended by your frustration. I welcome the whole truth of what you are feeling, because that is where real relationship begins, not in pretending, but in being fully known. There is a particular kind of loneliness that comes from crying without anyone in the room, and I do not want you to underestimate how closely I was paying attention during those moments. You may have believed that because no human witness was present, your grief did not count as fully as it would have if someone had seen it. But grief does not require an audience to be valid, and pain does not require witnesses to be real. I was your witness. I saw every version of you that you hid from everyone else, and I did not look away, and I did not love you any less for what you were carrying. Think of the nights you sat in your car before walking inside, composing your face, steadying your breath, preparing to pretend that everything was fine. I saw you in those minutes before you put the mask on. I saw the exhaustion underneath the smile you were about to perform for everyone else. And I want you to know, you never had to perform that exhaustion away from me. You could have brought me your rawest, most unfiltered self in that car, and I would have received it exactly the same way I receive you now, without judgment, without disappointment, only with tenderness. It was never that your struggle needed to be hidden from me in order to remain acceptable. It was always that I already knew the full weight of what you were hiding, and I loved you fully in spite of it, and because of it, and through it. Not because you eventually pulled yourself together and presented a stronger version of yourself, but because the version of you that was falling apart was just as precious to me as the version that later found steadiness again. You do not have to wait until you feel strong to come to me. Come exactly as you are, in the falling apart, in the unraveling, in the moments you feel least presentable, and know that you will be received exactly the same. The silence was never empty, it was preparation. There is a kind of silence that feels like abandonment, and I know you have felt it. The waiting that stretches longer than you expected. The prayer you prayed months ago, maybe years ago, that still seems unanswered. I want to speak directly into that ache right now. That silence was never empty. It was never me forgetting you, or overlooking you, or deciding you were not worth the effort. It was always preparation, careful and unseen, happening in rooms you were not yet invited into. A seed does not know, while it sits buried in dark soil, that anything is happening. From where the seed sits, there is only darkness, only stillness, only what looks like nothing. But underneath that silence, roots are forming. Strength is being built in a place no one can see yet. And when the moment is right, what was hidden breaks through the surface, and what looked like emptiness is revealed to have been growth all along. That is what has been happening in your waiting. Not absence, but formation. It was never that I delayed because I did not care. It was always that I was building something in you, and sometimes in your circumstances, that could not be rushed without being weakened. Not because you were being punished, but because you were being prepared. Not because you were forgotten, but because you were being made ready for something your current season could not yet hold. I know it has felt like too long. I know there were nights you wondered whether your prayers were even reaching anywhere at all, whether they were simply floating out into an indifferent universe. But your prayers were never floating aimlessly. They were landing, every time, directly in front of me. I heard the one you prayed on your worst day. I heard the one you barely remember praying, because you were too exhausted to even form full sentences. Every one of them arrived. Every one of them mattered. Consider the farmer who plants a field and then waits through an entire season before anything visible appears above the ground. If the farmer only trusted what could be seen with his eyes, he would dig the seed back up in frustration, convinced that nothing was happening, and in doing so, he would destroy the very thing that was quietly taking root. I have asked you, more than once, not to dig up what I have already planted in you, even when the waiting feels unbearable. What is unseen is not unreal. What is delayed is not denied. There is also a kind of preparation that happens not in you, but around you, in the timing of other people, in the alignment of circumstances you cannot see or control. Sometimes what feels like my delay is actually me waiting for someone else's heart to be ready, or for a door to be built that does not exist yet, or for a season in the world around you to shift into place. None of that means you were forgotten in the meantime. It means the answer you are waiting for is being woven together with more care than you can currently imagine. Your isolation was never proof of rejection, beloved. I want to gently correct something you may have believed about yourself. You have looked at the isolation in certain seasons of your life, the friendships that faded, the rooms where you felt out of place, the moments no one seemed to understand what you were going through, and you have quietly concluded that something must be wrong with you. That perhaps you were too much, or not enough, or simply forgettable. Hear this clearly. It was never rejection. It was always redirection. It was never that you were unworthy of company. It was always that I was clearing space around you, so that you would learn to recognize my voice without the noise of a crowd distracting you from it. Some of the loneliest seasons of your life were not punishments, they were sacred pauses, quiet enough for you to finally hear what had been true about you all along. Not because you failed to keep people close, but because I was drawing you closer to myself first, so that you would not build your identity on people who were never meant to carry the weight you were placing on them. Not because you are hard to love, but because you were being taught, slowly and gently, what real, unconditional love actually feels like, so you would recognize it when it showed up in others too. I know solitude can feel like evidence of being overlooked. But I want you to see it instead as evidence of being chosen for something quieter, something deeper, something that could not be formed in the middle of constant noise. Every person I have used in significant ways walked through a season of feeling unseen before they were seen. Every voice that carries weight was once a voice that spoke into silence, uncertain if it was heard at all. You are in good company, even when it does not feel like it. Think about the people you have admired most, the ones whose steadiness or wisdom or peace seemed almost unshakable. What you likely never saw were the quiet years before that steadiness formed, the seasons where they, too, felt forgotten, unseen, uncertain whether anyone would ever notice them. What looked like sudden strength to you was actually the fruit of a long, hidden process, one that almost always includes solitude somewhere near its root. You are walking that same kind of process now, even if you cannot yet see where it leads. I also want to speak to the specific ache of being surrounded by people and still feeling entirely alone. That particular loneliness is one of the hardest to explain to anyone else, because from the outside, it looks like you have plenty of company. But I know the difference between a room full of people and a heart that feels truly known. I have been present in that gap, in that space between being surrounded and being understood, and I have never once mistaken your surface smile for the fullness of what you were actually feeling underneath it. Nothing you are waiting for needs to be earned. There is a lie that has followed you for a long time, and I want to remove it from you tonight. The lie says that my love, my protection, my favor over your life, is something you must earn through enough effort, enough faith, enough good behavior, enough spiritual performance. I want to tell you plainly, that has never been true, and it was never meant to be true. It was never a transaction. It was always a gift. It was never about what you could produce for me. It was always about what I already decided to give you, long before you were capable of earning anything at all. You did not earn my attention through the prayers I heard in your loneliest moments. I gave it freely, because giving freely is who I am, not a reaction to who you managed to become. Not because you performed well enough in your faith, but because you are mine, simply, completely, without conditions attached. Not because you finally prayed the right way, or waited long enough, or suffered enough to prove your devotion, but because the love was already assigned to you before any of that ever happened. You were already held before you learned how to hold on to anything yourself. I know it is tempting to believe that if you just try harder, pray longer, do more, you will finally unlock what you have been asking for. But beloved, you are not unlocking anything. It is not behind a door that requires the correct combination of effort. It is already yours. It was already given. What is coming to you is not a reward for good performance, it is an inheritance that was decided before you had done anything at all to deserve or disqualify yourself from it. You may have grown up believing that love always has conditions attached, that people are kind to you because of what you provide for them, or how well you behave, or how little trouble you cause. I understand why you carried that belief into your relationship with me as well. But I want to gently dismantle it tonight. My love was never structured like the conditional love you may have experienced from others. I do not love you more on the days you pray longer, and I do not love you less on the days you forget to pray at all. My affection for you has never fluctuated based on your effort, because it was never rooted in your effort to begin with. This means you can stop striving to prove yourself worthy of what I have already given you. You can lay down the exhausting habit of measuring your spiritual performance, wondering if you have done enough to deserve my attention today. You have never had to earn the right to be heard by me. You have never had to perform your way into my presence. The invitation was always open, the door was always unlocked, and the love was always already yours, resting quietly, waiting for you to simply receive it instead of trying to earn it all over again. Section 6. I heard every word, and I am still listening, so my child, hear me one final time tonight. Every prayer you thought disappeared into silence, I heard. Every night you felt forgotten in your own room, I was present. Every tear that fell without witness, I gathered. Every long season of waiting was never punishment, it was preparation. Every moment of isolation was never rejection, it was redirection towards something steadier than what you lost. And nothing you are still waiting for needs to be earned, because it was never a transaction to begin with, it was always a gift, freely given, long before you knew to ask for it. You prayed alone, but you were never truly alone. You whispered into what felt like an empty room, but the room was never empty. I was there, I am still there, and I will be there in every room you ever pray in again. It was never silence. It was always an answer being formed. It was never distance. It was always closeness disguised as quiet. It was never abandonment. It was always love, patient, steady, unearned, and completely certain. I want you to carry something specific away from this moment, beloved. The next time you find yourself praying alone, in a quiet room, in a car, in the dark hours before sleep, I want you to remember this conversation. I want you to remember that the silence around you does not mean the silence is empty. I want you to remember that your tears are being gathered, that your waiting is producing something, that your isolation has never meant rejection, and that nothing you long for has ever needed to be earned through striving. These 4 truths are not new ideas I am giving you tonight, they are simply reminders of what has already been true for as long as you have known me. You do not need a perfect prayer to be heard. You do not need the right words, the right posture, the right amount of faith measured out precisely. You simply need to come as you are, in whatever state you find yourself, and know that coming as you are has always been enough. It was enough on your best day, and it was enough on your worst day, and it will be enough tomorrow, whatever tomorrow brings. So tonight, I invite you to simply sit with this truth, not to strive, not to perform, but to rest. Take a slow breath, and let yourself believe, even just a little more than you did yesterday, that you have always been heard. If these words touched something in you, take a moment to pray quietly, in your own words, and tell me what is on your heart. I am listening now, the same way I was listening then, the same way I will be listening tomorrow. And if this message brought you peace tonight, consider staying close to this space, so these words can keep finding you exactly when you need them most.